She is our current scholarship chair, the woman in the know and in the hot seat tonight. And Amanda, thank you so much for leading this chapter chat tonight. And I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more and tell them about yourself.
Sure. Um, let's make sure I'm unmuted. Yep. My name is Amanda Storr. I'm with the Tyler Area AMBUCS chapter in Tyler, Texas. And so, and like she said, I am the scholarship chair this year. However, I don't know, I'm not in the know about all the things, but I think one of the things that I enjoy most about being in this position is I do teach in a physical therapist assistant program. And so I do interviews and application reviews and all of that of our program every year. We admit 20 into our program every year. So, you know, I get to do this every year for assistant level programs. And then I have a kind of a direct line into not only am I a therapist, I am a PTA, but I also kind of know what the struggles are currently for students and what that looks like. And so kind of have a heartbeat on that as well. A thumb, my thumb or my foot in the door on that as well, all those different sayings. And so anyways, I think and we've got, well, I mean, there's a few of us that are on the committee now. I know that Andrea is just starting, but they can. Some of you have served on the scholarship committee before, so if there's anything that you guys want to add, definitely feel free to interject and add whatever you feel like was important while you are serving as well, or some things that you've had come up and that helped you or helped others in your chapter, and then also just questions to facilitate some questions. I think the most common questions that we usually get are involving why wasn't my scholarship recipient or the person that we sponsored, why were they not selected? And so for us to have to answer that question, of course, there's a lot of different factors. And so we kind of want to go over some of those factors and make sure everybody's on the same page, but then also kind of give some tips and hints on how to make sure that they are meeting that criteria that the scholarship committee is looking for. And so, first up, I know that, we talk about the scoring guidelines and what we're looking for as a committee. And so, and what we're looking for when we get the application from the scholarship recipient. So, and when they're chapter sponsored, that changes a little bit because we are looking at the chapter sponsor form as well, and we are taking into consideration the chapter recommendations. And so we really want that chapter recommendation form, which is available online and PDF. And so it's very accessible now to you as chapters to fill out that sponsor form that you are sponsoring an individual. And so to fill out the bottom portion of that says the chapter's recommendation. And so when we read that, it should give us an insight into the scholarship recipient or scholarship applicant, that goes even further or is something different than what we've already read in their narrative. And so what they've given to us in their personal statement, we don't want a summarized version of that in the recommendation because we're already going to have to go and read that narrative. And it's like, why do I want to read this twice? And so we would like for you or whoever is in charge of that for your chapter to give something different, something more, something, to provide us with additional information that maybe they didn't expand enough on, or maybe this is what really stuck out to you guys as a chapter and why you chose to sponsor them. And so we look at that first. Of course, that is not really within our scoring guideline or our criteria, but that is something that we're looking at. So if we're between a rock and a hard place on numbers, if we're like, oh, we have this $650 or this $700 or even something larger, and we have a chapter that has really given a great outstanding recommendation and somebody that hasn't, then it could mean the difference between that amount of money, right? So we're about to get some rain here. You might hear raindrops on my sunroof in my car. So hopefully it's not too distracting. So that's something that we look at. So is there any questions, comments about that chapter recommendation as it pertains to sponsored applicants? And do you have any questions about like, what does that mean, sponsored applicants, or is everybody kind of already there?
I think I would just reiterate the importance of making sure you have qualified students.
Yep.
That on a very basic level really kind of helps the committee do the legwork, read their personal statements, make sure they are hitting the points that the committee is going to judge them on. You can coach your students on how to submit a better application.
So what is your qualification for a qualified student?
Yeah, so we're going to go through some of those guidelines of what we're looking for. But I will say, that's one of the first things that we look at is those sponsor chapter recommendations to see if there's something that sticks out. For example, if they've attended some of your AMBUCS events, if they volunteered with you at AMBUCS events, if they've done, things, or if they've done something outstanding and it pertains to AMBUCS, then definitely highlight that. We're like, why wouldn't they put this in here? Or really expand on that for sure, because they may list off what they've done volunteer wise, but then you can expand and say that they were a great asset to your particular event or whatever when they volunteered at it, versus just having it in a list of volunteer work that they've done in the community. And so that's something that you could really expand on.
Does it benefit them?
It's also extremely important.
Well,
it's also extremely important that you have the candidates fill out all the paperwork ahead of time. Because you can have the greatest applicant in the universe, and if they don't fill out all the paperwork, it's for naught. We've had a couple of candidates go through that.
And we'll talk about that too. Whoever is responsible for your chapters, making, if you're going to sponsor a student or an applicant, then have them, be able to at least read through the personal statement to give feedback on, hey, you're supposed to have this within this personal statement and you don't have it at all. That means you're getting absolutely no points when we're doing the ratings for the committee. And you don't have to tell them exactly what to put. You just need to at least tell them to have it in there. And so if they've forgotten to put a paragraph about community service, then that is a big, that's hard, because they don't get any points for that. It's nothing in there. And so that's going to bump them down quite a bit in comparison to their peers. So that would be something that would be just really beneficial to be able to point that out to them, that they're missing that. And so you definitely need them to to maybe provide that to you early enough so you can give them feedback before they submit it to national.
If you find anything in their interview that is beneficial, that's the best thing to have them then go back to their essay. And I mean, I had one girl, I told her, I said, I can't sponsor her because I didn't feel like her essay was worthwhile at all. I mean, based on her essay. But then we get in the interview and she's like, oh, but I've done this and this, and I want to do this and this. I'm like, well, then why didn't you have that? And so even if you don't like their essay to begin with, in the interview process, you can point out things that they should include, or things maybe they shouldn't include. Maybe they think that we're, looking for the smartest person. And I said, not necessarily. We want to know somebody who's actually going to take a passion and go forward with it. What is your passion? How did you get into it? So those are the things. The interview process can also give you a lot of feedback on their essays.
I think too, when we're talking about things that they may miss, we get a lot of narratives, or that want to tell a story, and they want to be unique and they want to stand out, but then in trying to be creative and trying to be unique, they lose a lot of the points on what was actually supposed to be included in that personal narrative. So you'll read through it and be like, well, this is a great story, but it doesn't tell me anything about this person. It doesn't tell me about what they've done specifically. But it's really great creative writing. And if I was an English scholarship, I would probably give them one. But because it's a therapy scholarship, I can't really give that. And so, somebody's probably coached them and said, well, you want it to stand out. You want it to be remembered, and it's like, that's great. But we also have criteria that we want you to follow. So I want that criteria in there as well. And so So talking about the scholarship scoring and I think what the questions and what a lot of you are, wanting and have questions about are, how do we score that? What do we look at? And so first up, obviously, is financial need. And so we are looking at, what is their need based on FAFSA, how they've turned that in, they've put that through. Others is like the earned family credit. Is that right? Did I say that right? EFC. And so their score, like, are other people in their family contributing to their, contributing to their schooling, to their financial stability, things of that nature. And so we are looking at the FAFSA, and it does give us a number, and many times we will see several that will be in upwards of $75,000 or more already. And so, but we're also taking into consideration, for example, we have criteria that's less than 10,000 or 10 to 25,000, 25 to 75, and then greater than 75. But if we have somebody that's like, less than 10,000, but yet since they filled out the FAFSA, they had to move to go to school. And that meant their significant other also had to change jobs, and they've had a child since then. So we are considering, like, okay, well, their debt has probably surpassed that 10,000 now. So we actually kind of give them some credit on that and say, okay, we can probably imagine that it would be between that 10 and 25. So there is some cushion there if they do explain themselves and they say, that those things were occurring. So we never want somebody to not apply because they're like, oh, well, I'll never get it because I don't have, $200,000 in debt, which is not true. And so, so financial need is, of course, something that we are looking at. But again, like I said, if you have somebody that, has no financial need starting out, let's say they just got admitted, they're applying for it, and they have a standout personal statement, but their financial need is zero. That doesn't necessarily mean that they won't get anything. By the time we get to the end of looking at all the ones that have a great financial need, maybe their personal statements are trash, and maybe we just like, this is terrible. And so, yes, you have this need, but you didn't follow instructions. You can't do these things. So maybe you didn't qualify for one of our scholarships. We didn't give you one, and we'll go back and maybe give those who had standout numbers on all the other guidelines a scholarship. And so, so I wouldn't say that anybody who has a zero is not going to get a scholarship. It's just, it may come down to, where we're trying to decide between the two, between those who do have a need and those who don't, based on their personal statement and the other things that they include in there.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me
So
now?
any other questions on like financial need and what you might be looking for there? I would tell people never to tell somebody not to apply, even if they don't have a great financial need, because it could be that their first year they don't have it, the second year they're gonna have it, and they're kind of already in the system. We kind of already know, and they already know the flow and how to get it, how to get their information in. And if they resubmit a personal statement that's just as stellar as their first one, and now they're at a 1 or a 2 on financial needs, and they're gonna get a scholarship, or they're gonna get a higher scholarship. So definitely have them apply anyway.
And if they do not get a scholarship, then you already have all the paperwork for your chapter to decide if you're going to do any chapter scholarships, because that's where we go next for chapter scholarships, is anyone who doesn't get a national award, or sometimes we double up if we've got somebody who is outstanding in helping AMBUCS and doing that, then we want to reward them possibly with extra. And if you've got that already done, then that makes that much easier.
Well, from speaking from one of the recipients, actually the guy that's in charge of our scholarship program is actually one of the scholarship winners for AMBUCS. He actually came back to AMBUCS to help support with us because we paid for his scholarship. So, but he said it's just there's a lot of them out there, and some people that have the question about the points is justifying someone's need, like you were saying, on their where they were in the beginning of the year. Their parents may not be helping the second year or the third.
Yep.
Even if FAFSA says, hey, you're able to help, that doesn't mean they're actually doing their part.
Yeah.
because
And
I've
like
seen
I
kids
said,
that
I
are
mean,
go to college.
we have these guidelines that we use, but I mean, sometimes they can be a little, we can ebb and flow within, but it would only be a point or so. It's not like we're going to have like, oh, there's no financial need, and then we're going to bump them all the way to the top because we're like, oh, well, they moved out of their parents' house, they're not getting help anymore. But we would, we could have a little bit of a cushion there when we move them and go, there is probably going to be more of a need than they anticipated when they first filled this out, several months ago. And now, we're looking at it. And so, or now they've had to move and now they've gotten into this program, there is going to be a greater need. And so we may actually bump their financial need up one into a different bracket, with the knowledge that, 3 months ago, they didn't have debt, but now that they've enrolled and things like that, and they actually have it, it's not reflected on that FAFSA right now, but they have to explain that to us. So, and there's an opportunity for them to do that. So they can comment on, make comments on that. Like, this last year has been really hard, and this is the reflection of what happened the year prior. So let me tell you what's happened this year. And so that way we know we might make some adjustments that way. Any other questions on financial need and like how to determine, that's not really your determination as a chapter. It is what it is. They fill out the FAFSA, but if they ask you for advice on if they should apply based on, oh, I don't have any financial need, I just got in, and for whatever reason, maybe they had full ride scholarship for their baccalaureate degrees, and now they're gonna have to take out loans for their masters and doctorates. Then, should they actually apply? Then you can facilitate that conversation, and then also have them explain if there's been any hardships that would be different than what their FAFSA would reflect, because that happens a lot.
Critique their financial statement as much as you would their essay.
Yeah.
I think it's important
All right.
to.
Go ahead.
I think it's important for the members who are not on the scholarship committee to understand that there's 4 of us that are making these decisions. So, if we see, if I see, something that, well, hey, this student helped Amanda with one of their projects. It's like, that's going to, the light bulb's going to go off in my head and go, hey, we need to do that, and, like I say, there's 4 volunteers who are doing this. So, yeah.
Give us help.
Give us hope. That's right. That's right. There is hope. There is hope.
So our second guideline that we're looking at, and we're looking at the personal statement here when we go into these next 3 guidelines, are community service. And so community service is what we're looking at next. And so what we want to see here is that all of their community service is not what they were required to do for their program in order to stay in the program or to get into the program. So a lot of times we can kind of read through the lines when it's like they're using it saying they were an intern. And it's like, okay, but you had to do volunteer hours in order to, like, so many 36, 48 volunteer hours somewhere in order to get into a program. And most of that is I'm sitting across the room, or I'm sitting nearby or whatever. I'm watching. I'm not actually hands-on. I'm having to do this in this clinic, whatever. And so those of us who are therapists know that that's what that looks like, because nobody's going to come and let some amateur off the street just come in and start doing treatments. You can't do that. So it's mostly observation. And so, we kind of have to read through the lines on that. We want to make sure that it's not that there is other volunteer work in there. And so, areas of community work and service. So this could be anything. I mean, people can bring up anything, but we also want to see that there's something related to service to people. And if service to people with disabilities is in there, then that's perfect. And then if they've done something with AMBUCS, it better be in there. Like, it doesn't matter if they, served at a fair, beer at a fair. It doesn't matter. They were serving the mission of AMBUCS and what it meant, and they got to learn about it. They got to hang around the members, whatever it is. And so, so community service, I can't tell you how many times we have a really good, like, standout candidate that has put in the other 2 scoring guidelines of character and career objectives, and that we can really tell those things in there. And then we'll read through and be like, there is absolutely no community service mentioned at all. And we're like, golly, that's really a shame that nobody read through this personal statement and said, hey, what have you done in the community? And that's when you can coach them if they're like, listen, I have 3 kids at home and working 2 jobs, and I've been in school. I haven't had time to do a whole lot of volunteer work. Okay, let's see what you have done that we can turn into volunteer work, even though you haven't logged the hours as volunteer work, right? Because a lot of people don't really know what it is that they've done that really makes it volunteer work. So it could be that they have helped out at their kids' schools or whatever for sports or whatever and things like that. And they can use that as well, but definitely don't not include anything just because you feel like you haven't done it.
Exactly. There's a lot of different kinds of community service, and frequently people are doing something without realizing that that's something to be considered.
I had a girl who babysat for her neighbor every afternoon after school for free, and had no idea that she could list that as community service. So
yeah. So I think that they get caught up on going, oh, it has to be like something with an organization or something official. And I helped with somebody with a sport after school, but it wasn't Special Olympics, so that doesn't count, right? And we're like, no, it's fine. Like, put it in there. And so we kind of want to see that as well in that community service part of the statement.
Yeah, some of the kids don't understand what their community service actually is. I mean, even my daughter turned around because I forced her to do a food drive every weekend for like 2 years. And she goes, I have not done any community service. I'm like, you've been doing community service every weekend for 2 years. And she goes, what? No, it's just the church thing you make me do. I'm like, it's community service.
You're serving the community. Yeah.
Yeah, they're a little kids don't get it.
I think the takeaway from this one is whoever is in charge of in your chapter of, whether it's a committee or a person, of reading through the personal statements, like that is the biggest thing. Is it's almost like, we have a checklist or rubric, like make yourself a checklist or rubric. That's the teacher coming out of me, is being like, yes, they have this. Yes, they have, they can expand on this. Let me tell them they need to expand on that. And, if they're like, oh, but I'm already at a page length long, that would, if I put that paragraph in there, it would cut it down. It's like, okay, well, maybe take out some of this other fluff in here that you've put about how you wanted to become a therapist. If there's not some major story that it's bound to, then maybe take some of that out. If it's something involving your family member that you had to take care of and things like that, that would direct us to your character, which we'll talk about next, then by all means leave it in there. But, we do say try to keep it to like 1 page, which most of them are, but we definitely get some that are longer. But we don't want, we've had this before, the 2-page single spaced 10 font, and we're like, oh my gosh. And so much information. And so there is such a thing as overkill, of course. But, if they're a couple of sentences over because they were having to put community service in and they couldn't figure it out, it's not like it gets kicked back. We're going to read it. So any other questions on community service and what needs to be included in that? Or what you should be looking for, or how you should coach the applicants towards doing that better?
Well, one question we ask all of our scholarship recipients, that they volunteer for at least 2 of our events every year, festivals. And most of them are, well, the Vo-Tech kids aren't as good right out of high school, but the graduate degree girls always work for our, and is that a requirement or a request when they get a scholarship?
So no, it's not a requirement. So that's good that you're creating that culture in your chapter. And it's probably something that really does need to, that more chapters could look at, because then it does invite them in, and you get to actually, stay in touch with them, meet them. They get to actually interact with the club, things like that. And but it's not, but it really does stick out, especially if you've had a chapter recommendation for this person that is really, that really expands on them. And then they're putting in that they've worked with AMBUCS and they potentially will be, continue to work with AMBUCS in the future, depending on what they choose to do with their career objectives. Then yeah, it definitely does make a difference in either them getting a scholarship or not, or how much of a scholarship they're going to get. So All right, so the next one that we look at guideline wise is character. And so this one's a little bit more difficult. And I personally would say, and somebody could knock me down on this, but I think this is a big reason of why we have 4 people that are reading these and 2 people that are reading for the different regions that we have. And so because character is very hard, and so I can read into somebody's character a lot differently than maybe somebody else could, or they see certain things in somebody's character than I might. And so this is why we do this, so we have an average of scoring. So it might be that I'm like, it was kind of boring for me, and then somebody else is like, oh my gosh, it was like my favorite one. Now that rarely happens. We're pretty much even keel. We might be 1 point up or 1 point lower, but rarely is it ever like, oh my gosh, this is the worst one ever, and somebody else is like, I thought it was the best one and they should get a Steer scholarship, whatever. And so, but there is a reason why we do that. And I think character is a big reason why we do that, because it is more difficult to read through and find someone's character and what they've written versus the checklist of, do they have financial need? Have they input their community service? You know, did they actually tell what their career objectives are, which is the last one. So, but for character, we are looking like, you know, were they able to display in writing their compassion for others, you know, how they've shown integrity in the, you know, in their personal life, but also in their, you know, educational and professional life thus far. You know, do they have leadership skills that they've shown through whatever? Do they, you know, did they start their own nonprofit? Did they, you know, whatever they've done? Did they, you know, have they gone on, you know, mission trips and or ministries within the community and things like that? We look for that as well. You know, extracurricular activities that are outside of the community service. Because we've already looked at community service, but you know, if they blended together, that's fine. But if they have things even above and beyond the you know, and have gone even further, the extracurricular, then we are grading on that as well. And so just the impression that we get based on what they're writing. I think that, you know, when we talk about the ones that we get that are trying to be the most unique and creative and like tell a story, they get character really well. Like that is where their strong suit. They're like, I'm going to hit them with character. And then that's where we lose a lot of the other things, because they're really trying to hit us with that character, which is great. And then the others who are really literal, who are like, I need to tell you everything that I've ever done from the time I was 13 until now, volunteer wise. And like, you know, and I know exactly where I'm going to work and in this state, in this environment, and this. So they give us all the other things, but then the character is just not there. It's very dry. It's very bland. And so, again, it's just one of those things you want to look through that personal narrative. And if you are going to coach them on something, if you're like, you know, obviously we're not going to sit down with somebody and be like, so it was boring. And, you know, and I know you're not a boring person, but, you know, so you would coach them and say, hey, you've hit all the highs, but I need some feeling in it. You've got to put some of your character in that. And that's where, like what Andrea said with interviews, if you're doing the interviews, whether it be via phone, Zoom, in person, you know, that's where you're showing me all these things right now. Like you're empathetic right now. I can tell when you tell this story that, you know, you've got a glimmer in your eye, you've got tears in your eyes, whatever. I need you to put that in paper. I need you to put that in writing. And some of that is very hard for people to do sometimes. So, and they just really need to know that that's what needs to happen. So, so that's character. So any questions on the character portion? Again, it's really hard, but you know, if you read something, if it's just like they've checked off all the boxes and that's all they're doing and they didn't really put any feeling into it. And you know, like if you've talked to the person or met the person and you know that this is not them, you're like, hey, this is not you. I have students that we've had come and talk to us before they apply to our program, and they're a totally different person than when they get in the interview. And then when they get in the interview with the interview panel, it's like, whoa, what happened? You're like, so, you know, flat affect. And we're like, hey, loosen it up. So we try to give them a, you know, an icebreaker question to like break it up and but, you know, and so it's those things where we tell them like, you know, you have to go into the interview loose and personal and be personable. So the same thing with this, it's got to come through on paper because that's all we're seeing. We're not able to interview them in person. Any questions, comments, any ideas that you've used in the past to identify character? Great. So our last one is career objectives, the last guideline that we use for scoring. And so in the student statement, what we're wanting to see is like, do they have any future plans? And a lot of times, you know, they may not know what they want to do. I mean, they may have just started out and they don't know if they want to do geriatrics, pediatrics, neuro, you know, they don't know if they want to do ortho. They don't know if they want to work in a hospital or a skilled nursing facility. That's fine. But it's like, give us some insight as to what is your dream job? What do you think you want to do? And if it changes, that's fine. We're not going to come to you and be like, well, you told us in your narrative like 5 years ago that you were going to work in a skilled nursing facility and you were going to volunteer for AMBUCS and you didn't do any of that. No. So it's like, I need you to just dream big and put it in paper. Like, tell me what you want to do and put it in your narrative. And so, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't come true, right? It's fine. And so some people know exactly what they want to do, like what we talked about, but some people don't. And so that's when you tell them, okay, tell me what you want to do if there was no limitations. Like if money wasn't an object, or, you know, an issue, if your family wasn't an issue, what would you do? And so my students love that question. They go wild with it. So, you know, it would be very interesting to see those students who have no clue, they can answer that appropriately, you know, that way. And then we're looking for also like, are they community oriented? Are they community minded when they are considering their future? Do they say anything about, you know, wanting to continue to assist in the community that they're in? Become an AMBUCS member and volunteer in some capacity. Again, that's not a requirement, but if they're saying that, or if they're saying they're going to continue to volunteer in their community in a clinic there, and they're being sponsored by an AMBUCS chapter, then we could assume that they would have some interaction with AMBUCS in the future. So of course, that's going to be considered a little bit higher. And that's not to say that their mission is any less than somebody who's like, I'm going to go open up a clinic in a third world country and work there forever and never come back to this hometown and never, you know, have an AMBUCS chapter or whatever, because we all know that, I mean, I've taken Amtrak's to Africa, third world countries. So we've got AMBUCS on the ground in third world countries. So there is a good ministry there, but we are looking at more local community involvement and what they're considering when they're going to do that in their future. Any questions on career objectives? Well, I mean, so those are our guidelines. So we're, again, looking at financial need, which, you know, again, we do have some cushion there, but a lot of it is, it's pretty straightforward. We use those numbers as our rubric. Community service, character, and career objectives. And so again, that personal statement is very important, but I think equally just as important is the chapter recommendation that accompanies that for sponsor. I think in the past it's kind of become kind of just another thing that you have to submit and throw it over, but we really do value that when we're in between a rock and a hard place going, gosh, do we give it to this person? Do we give it to this person? Or we're between an amount and we're trying to figure out what amount we want to give. And if we look back and we have a stellar, you know, recommendation from a chapter, then more than likely it's going to go that direction to that one that has that chapter recommendation. So it's always better to have a good recommendation. What we don't want to see is a copy, and we don't want to see just, you know, just a basic, you know, rundown of like, this is why we're sponsoring this one because of XYZ, and it's exactly the same as like all the others that we've seen previously.
How long is the recommendation? I mean, like paragraph, 2 paragraphs of our decision, why?
It's literally like, I don't know, 4 to 6 lines. I think.
I was
I mean,
gonna
it's
say-
not very long.
I'm just
at all.
making sure. I'm like, do I need like a 4-paragraph thing on why we're
No.
sponsoring this young lady or
No.
young man?
That no, please
Thank
no.
you.
But I mean,
Tyler
you
might be a little
just,
mad he has to do that.
yeah, just like they have to keep their narrative down to a page, we would like you to keep yours down to like a few sentences, 2 to 3 sentences, you know. But, and that's really, I mean, because, you know, when we're reading through all of these, we're literally just glancing back and going, okay, this one really sticks out. That's why. And so, any other questions? Or
I
anything
just
that I
always
didn't-
suggest that you just try to make sure you're trying to grab the attention. I always try to start mine with something immediate that the reason why you're going to love this applicant, just to make sure you get, I mean, when you read 1,800 applications or 500 sponsorships, you've got to make sure that yours has something that's attention getting.
Yeah.
I do agree with that.
For sure.
I will say that we, in the immediate past, or as long as I've been a part of it, and I've heard some stories of a little bit previous to me, it is like we were very not frustrated, but more disappointed in the quality of the sponsor applications versus the quality of the non-sponsored applications. And I think this is one of the reasons we're having, you know, one of these chats, and we try to have, you know, talks about it at national conference and things like that, and even regional conferences and things, to try to make sure that everybody's kind of on the same page about that, so that we can increase the, you know, just make the sponsored applicants stand out more, because it was very disheartening to be like, man, these are just not cutting it. And then we get to the non-sponsored and we're like, they're just so much better. And why is that? You know, when these sponsored applicants have the opportunity to be coached through, or to be interviewed, or, you know, to be looked at. And so we really want that opportunity for our chapters to get to know these sponsors better, or to get to know these applicants better. And in order to do that, then it may be better for your chapter to set up a way in order for you to do that, whether it be interviews or, you know, Zoom calls, or if they can't come to your meetings, and, you know, have them in there through Zoom or digitally, or some way where they can virtually, you know, become or feel like they're more a part of it, and you can have them meet more of your membership that way, or, you know, just different various ways that you can do that in order to make it better.
And some
I
may
do- I
disagree with
typically-
me, but I'm not afraid to tell them that I won't sponsor them either. I will encourage them to apply, but they may not get the sponsorship, especially if they're not willing to take any of if I've asked them to do something and they don't do it, then I no problem saying, well, go ahead and apply, but we're not going to be able to sponsor you.
Yep.
Well,
We typically sponsor several of our chapter recipients. And every single one of our chapter recipients is also invited to our annual awards banquet. And more often than not, they do show up for that. And I think that's very important, because it also gives the members of the chapter an opportunity to meet these people.
Yeah.
Well, and then for them to see AMBUCS when it's not just a meeting or just about them, they get to see it when it's about what else is going on and
Exactly.
what they might be able to contribute.
Exactly.
well, in a prior life, I used to write grants for federal grants for railroads and things like that. But when I would go to DC and talk to the people that evaluate it, they said, if you don't get us in the first paragraph, you're going in the do not receive file. So, I mean, emphasizing the applicants that first paragraph has got to grab somebody is why we should continue to read the whole application.
I do think that is important. But I would stress that that is not the only thing that we are looking at. And we are reading the entire personal statement on all the sponsored, or, you know, all the sponsored applicants. And so if they do not, they can grab me in all the ways in the first paragraph, but then if they don't follow instructions and put career objectives or community service, it makes me so irritated as an educator that I'm like, I'm so mad at you right now. And so, and it really is. And so I'm like, you could have done that and put that in, and you would have been so good. And so,
That's hilarious.
but yeah, I do think that, again, the, you know, words there are just coaching. And so I can tell you from my perspective as an educator in a vocational technical program that, you know, we get from a lot of times we get students from gen ed that just do not know how to articulate their words in writing. And so they need a lot of coaching even to that point. And so I think that if you have somebody that's good that can just point those things out to them, that is what is really going to increase the chances of them getting the scholarship. So if your chapter is really really wanting to get more involved in the scholarship, really wanting to get your sponsored applicants actually getting a scholarship, then that really has to happen. Some coaching has to happen. So
I was wondering, with Savannah chapter, in Savannah, Georgia, I didn't know if any of y'all might be willing to share email or whatever, like your application y'all use for your own chapter awards, your scoring or rubric that you use, and maybe like criteria for the students. I know, for instance, one thing, we're in Chatham County, but we will give them to students like within 3 surrounding county areas. So I didn't know if y'all might be willing to share some of that with us.
It's on the hub.
Well,
Jessica,
Cornville,
isn't that on the hub?
well, I think
Claire?
what she's asking for is somebody like, for example, when Andrea does interviewing to make sure that she actually wants to sponsor the individual, what is it that you're using to make that decision before you then push it forward to national or tell them to go to national with it? Like, how do you make your decision in order to fill out the chapter sponsor form? And
Yeah, we try to
Yes.
just ask five questions, because we usually do telephone interviews. We have 3 or 4 people who do them. I have some people that like some, I kind of outlined 5 questions, but then, other people have took some of those or added their own. But when they give their information to me, basically what I'm trying to do is pick out the one reason why I just personally think they are a great candidate. I had a girl last year who she was a Spanish major and ended up in speech language therapy because she realized that in teaching Spanish, these kids were not getting the speech language therapy that they needed. And so that was what hit me. And that's why I was like, we have to honor her because she's going to go out and serve an underprivileged. I just try to find that one thing about each applicant that I find is the most important, or the reason I wanted to. I had one girl that she didn't have much of anything to say, but she was just trying so hard to do whatever I asked her to do. And I thought, that's a person who's she's going to have initiative. She's going to want to do something. So I kind of do it more by gut. I don't have a rubric. I've never really, not that kind of person. I go more off of gut feel. That would be the English major in me. But I just always try to find what is the best thing about that person and highlight it.
Cornville generally follows the national tableau for choosing applicants for scholarships, with a couple of exceptions. First of which is because of the nature of the schools that we have locally. Most of our scholarships that are given out by the chapter are not graduate students. There are people that we expect to be graduate students for the most part, and they generally turn out to be that way. And then we pick out 2 or 3 of the ones we think that most fit what National is looking for, and then we pass those on as sponsored scholarship recipients.
Well, we use our own here in Grapevine for what we give out. We're a little bit lazy on some of this because, like the doctorate programs, it's up to the school to go through their candidates, and they have their criteria. We give them what we want, and then they kind of work through it and do it themselves because they know the students. And we only give the doctorate, we give second-year degrees or scholarships because we know they're going to finish it. We've just added 3 for TT assistants, and then we work with the junior college on what our criteria is, and they'll send us what they have and why they picked them, and we approve.
All right, yeah, this is helping. Thank y'all.
All of our stuff is on the Grapevine Handbooks website for scholarships, if you want to look at it.
Thank you.
All right, well, Donna, I know we're getting close to the end of our time. If you guys have any other questions, but I did want to send out some just reminders that, you know, the application for scholarships will be available February 1st. So that's when you start directing your scholars towards the application. And then it closes May 1st. Your sponsor forms, your chapter forms to sponsor the students are due May 15th. So, you know those dates, so you can kind of gear your sponsor students to turn in stuff early to you if you're a person who is going to coach them through or read through their thing and give them any kind of identifying information as to what they might need to edit or add, or if it's great, then you can say, okay, we're sending it through, and we'll send in our form as well. So
I do have
So
a quick
that's that.
question. A quick question. We had this issue, and I talked to Jessica about this at National, and I don't think we ever followed up on it. But we never got a chance to, anyways. When are we issuing checks from the National scholarships to these kids? Because remember Jessica was talking to me about the kids are starting school, and they're already in school and already have to process the money and come up with the funds before even if they've gotten their scholarship. So we've run into it many times because a lot of Mesquite's kids got scholarships and they're still waiting on checks, and they're already in school. They're already at school. They're already
Right.
processed.
They have summer programs, and
Right.
that's pretty typical across the country with some of these different therapy programs. So it's definitely a conversation. It's a goal that we have that we're going to hit to try to move that application process up a little bit periodically as we can. So this year we had a lot of change implemented. The scholarship application is the same, but the way we collect that information, wanting to make it a little bit easier for chapters to send in their sponsorships, or for us to better identify potential chapters for some of these students. We just had a lot of change going on this year, and it felt a little rushed knowing that we were implementing a new system to try to move the dates as well. Because, when we do that, we've got to adequately prepare the chapters for that change.
Agreed.
So I think you could potentially see that in the coming year or two.
Okay.
Yeah. Did not fall on deaf ears. I
I wouldn't
believe
expect it to.
so. There was a chat. How
Yeah,
many
there is a
scholarships?
question in the chat.
Yeah, how many scholarships does National typically do? Usually anywhere between 250 and 300. So we might average anywhere from 12 to 1,800 applicants. 20% of the funds that we have available are restricted to non-sponsored students, which means up to 80% could go to chapter sponsored people. So when you've got that many applicants and that much money to go around, I think that really emphasized the importance of the chapter sponsorship process. So I want to applaud all of you for taking an active interest in being here tonight, because getting these students sponsored really is pretty important to getting them a scholarship.
Jessica, how much do we give out per year?
It's roughly about $200,000. AMBUCS is the largest private funder of scholarships for therapists.
And can you explain what happens when you get a named scholarship?
So, and in terms of what sort of prestige goes along with that?
Well, or just how can if people want to support the scholarship program, can they get a scholarship in their own name?
They sure can. Love that you asked that question, Steve. If you've ever heard about William L. White, he's not just our founder, he's also the namesake of our endowment program. So we have different individuals who have decided that they would like to make a William L. White gift, and that's $1,000. That's usually paid within a year, and we do have a lot of people who do payment plans for those. We invest those funds into what's called our permanent fund, and we're pooling all of that money together. So if any of you have any sort of experience with endowments, usually these named donors have their money invested individually, and then that scholarship lives for as long as those gifts live. For our donors who invest up to $10,000, which is a lot of money, but in the endowment world is actually really nominal. Most of the time I see investments starting at around $25,000. They are eligible for $10,000 to establish a named scholarship. And the reason why we're able to do that at a nominal level is because we are investing all of those funds together. So even our permanent fund is working shoulders together to create a perpetual scholarship program. So for the life of your named scholarship, we will give out an award forever and ever and ever in your name. We have a lot of chapters. I see Grand Rapids is on here. They've honored some of their members with named scholarships. You know, it's a really nice way to allow for someone's name to live forever in AMBUCS.
Didn't Carmela just get one at National?
Carmela's got a lot of them. She might have one or two.
She is a Davis after all, you know.
I see that Amanda says she needs to head out, and that's fine, Amanda. We know you got a meeting, but we can continue on here because I'm sure Jessica can answer a few more questions.
Thank you for sharing your contact information in the chat, Amanda. That was really nice of you.
Yeah, if you guys need to contact her, go there. I was going to ask, because I know like Nate is brand new to this. Do we need to show him where the scholarship application information, where to go online?
Yeah, we can do that.
Isn't it on the hub?
It is in the hub. I just don't even know where it's at.
All of that's on the hub, isn't it?
I love that we're accessing the hub for all of our AMBUCS info. All right, so we are on ambucks.org. So this is what you want to tell your students to do. We try to make it nice and easy and put a tab to the scholarship program at the top. You can also find some of that information embedded under therapists because we consider them future therapists. So that's why we put it there. But to eradicate any sort of confusion, we've got them a link at the top. We've got some really great testimonials. So that'll take you down to the bottom of the page to read from some of our past recipients. So this is just a collection of information about who is eligible, how much we typically award, what those awards usually range from, and some important dates are on here. So if you go here, it looks like you can go ahead and submit your application. Really, truly, it's just out there. So if students want to get the lay of the land, they can, but they will not be able to submit formally and officially until February 1st. I think it's good to go ahead and push them this direction. I feel like the application, if you think you're going to sit down and do it in one sitting, it's not going to happen. You need to fill out your FAFSA report and get the SAR. That's going to take the IRS a little bit of time to get back with you to compile that report. Students can go ahead and start working on their personal statements. They can just start collecting some of that documentation so that they're ready come February 1st. However, we do leave the application open for, let's see, what is it, 2 months? No, 3 months. So honestly, they've got plenty of time to get that information in here. We strive to do that because we want to get these students sponsored. So throughout this process, you are more than welcome to reach out to us and say, who do you got? We will not turn you away if you want to sponsor students. We'll get you some information about people who go to a particular university, who live in your community, or just really stellar applicants who don't have a chapter to sponsor them. We always run into a need for getting those people sponsored as well. Let me get back over here.
I'll have Jessica, I'll have Tyler reach out to you on that so he can start with being able to see what and go through those applicants that are at least the ones that need a sponsor.
Yeah.
So because again, us being a new chapter and wanting to get our foot in the door.
That would
with
be
that.
great. Would be great. If you are so lucky to work with local students, oh my goodness, do it. They have so much energy. They have so much passion. I love working with our local therapy programs.
Well,
They're
Tyler
just-
has a whole bunch of therapists that are going to therapy school immediately from his own company. So, and again,
Awesome.
Tyler Seaburn is one of our large recipients for our for the national scholarship. We paid for him to go. Ambucks paid for him to go to school.
Yay.
So, and he returned it by coming to Patriot Ambucks, and I mean, it might have benefited that he was also one of my physical therapists for my knee surgery. But hey, so I don't let a stone get unturned when I see an opportunity going, hey, you're Tyler. Let's go ahead and hey, you should be a member now because we did pay for your schooling.
Yeah. I have a pretty fun Ambucks Scholar story. So we sponsored an applicant for the last 2 years. She's a future speech language pathologist. She is in her last semester, and we're really excited for her. Steve would love this. She got Janice's scholarship last year.
All right.
We love us some Janice.
We do love
and
Janice.
she was doing one of her placements at a little nonprofit program called the Greensboro Cerebral Palsy Association, and they mostly work on early intervention, developmental delay toddlers right now. And my Ambucks Scholar helped get my daughter into that program.
Oh,
So,
Awesome.
all right.
yeah.
Is that nepotism?
Yeah. But we'll take it.
Can I just
Awesome.
ask, we haven't done any scholarships yet in Fargo, and so we're really new to this. And so as far as typical sponsorship, I know obviously the money out there varies between different chapters. Is there an average, or we're just looking at a place to start? We do have my daughter's in PT school just an hour north in Grand Forks, and then we have right here in Fargo, we have University of Jamestown. So we'd like to do more build a trikes and more partnership, but it's, so we're just trying to figure out how to start the process.
So how do you get involved with your local programs?
Or just how do you do you start off like $250, like four scholarships, or 500? I mean, I'm just, I as a parent of a child in PT school, I know the cost. And also being a PT myself, I know the cost. So I'm just, anyways, just looking at some place to start. So
Absolutely.
Are you
What
saying
grade
local
line?
scholarships for you? Like you're trying to do your local for your chapter to give a scholarship, or you're talking about for the national? Because national is just asking for you guys to be sponsors. You sponsor somebody to apply for a national scholarship. Your local would be your own funds that you're wishing to give for a scholarship, and you can make that in any amount.
Right. So I think you kind of touched on sometimes national gives such, X amount of dollars, and then the local chapter maybe does some also. So I'm just,
That can happen, yes.
So you would probably get a different answer from every single person on this Zoom who has experience with this program. So I think what makes it so challenging for the scholarship committee and the national board when trying to determine these ranges and how much the minimum scholarship amount is is because we do understand that the cost of education is rising, but we also have so many applicants that you're going to see there's a certain population of AMBUCs who want to see more students get more awards. And then you'll have some who say, yeah, but college is expensive. We need to give them bigger awards. And really, I think it just, what works for you and the group is what you do.
And what resources you have to contribute.
Yeah.
Just
We have had students who get $500 or $250 and they're happy. The average national scholarship is usually about $700, but it varies from year to year.
Okay,
we
We've
have
been
polled
fortunate-
our we've actually asked our students if they feel like the AMBUC scholarship paid for the work that they put in to get the scholarship, or and they said that there is so few dollars out there that if a scholarship will pay for one book, which ours pay for several, at the national level, they're thrilled. They feel like it is 100% worth it. So, I know that there is that constant war between whether we should give more money to less students. And I think any student's going to say, if you'll give me $100, I would be thrilled. And I feel like it's worth it to try and give money to more people. That's just my personal opinion. And I've never had anyone say, no, it's not worth it. So
I think, we did
I
have
don't
one
think- I don't think we've
early
ever-
on, but I think that, the FAFSA is for some of the students kind of that turnoff. And so that's why I was just asking that. If, I think some people don't want to share that from but obviously that's a criteria that National is using, but I was just
our
wondering
school is
locally,
so our school is in a community that I think our FAFSA scores are higher than, or I don't know how to say that, higher or lower. There have been a lot of people who have come to me and wanted an AMBUC scholarship, and I knew just from their score they weren't even going to be considered. They're off the charts with it. They have family that's helping. They have an income. They have jobs and things, and so those. We say for our local scholarship, that's kind of anybody who doesn't qualify that I feel like has put in the effort to actually get a scholarship. We try. Now our chapter scholarships are less. We don't necessarily give the same amount as the national scholarship, but like I said, our kids are just thrilled that they get something. So
yeah,
we've been fortunate at Cornbucks to have sort of an annual endowment. A member, a prior member, I should say, who passed away's family contributed $5,000 a year out of his estate for quite an extensive period of time, specifically for scholarships. So we would contribute an additional, generally $3,000 a year to that $5,000. And that allowed us to give away the scholarships, depending on how many applicants we had, anywhere from several $100s up to $2,000 for an individual.
that's amazing.
There's a question on chat that I'd like to address real quick. Sorry, Jay, I didn't mean to jump you off. I thought you're done. Rick asked, can a student get more than 1 year scholarships? They can reapply. They also could get a national scholarship, and they could get a chapter, like if your chapter wanted to give them money too. So they could get more than one scholarship in a year. But they can only get one national scholarship a year, but they can reapply for the following years.
Okay.
Yeah, our sponsored scholarships at National also receive funding from the chapter.
Yeah. Does that answer your question, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wanted to touch on the.
Does National then let you know I mean, you'd let the chapter know, so then if we wanted to give also to that person,
Well,
or
they produce a list that is published, and so the student can go and look for their name. But then, as scholarship chair, I always go and because I personally email all of my recipients to say congratulations, and then that's the best opportunity to invite them. Here's the thing, here's where we want you to come and be recognized. We want our members to meet you. You have these 5 opportunities to come see us.
Yeah, we give a plaque for every scholarship. They get it, they get a plaque for it. We give a plaque.
Nice. That's
So,
awesome.
Make that it kind of gives them an incentive to show up to the to be recognized. And then we make it. I mean, Mesquite did it where Mesquite gave about $45,000 a year away. So in scholarships, but that's a high number amount to give out. So but
yeah,
they're one of the highest out there giving. But that's just somewhere to try to set a goal for. But yeah, they used to give out a plaque every year to get the recipients come. But with the scholarships, it's fairly simple. You can even go to the schools for scholarships to tell them, hey, you want to give a scholarship, and they'll handle it. They'll handle the whole thing for you almost. All the high schools, if you want to give a scholarship for the high schools, because my family has we have a give fund for Horn High School football that we give 5 scholarships. Myself, my family gives 5 scholarships to football players every year. So, but yeah, it's not millions of dollars, but it's enough for them to buy 2 semesters, 3 semesters worth of books when they win. So. But yeah, the schools will definitely most of the time help out with that. And that's a fast way to do it for the kids that are just going to general ed first.
Well, I have to leave. I just want to let you guys know that Marcy was actually here. She was lurking in the background, listening the whole time. She's in the kitchen right now, but I want you guys to have a wonderful rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing all you guys at National. I look forward to seeing a number of you people at the end of February, first part of March. And thanks for another great chat.
Thanks and bye.
Have a good evening.
Jessica, did you have something else you wanted to say?
I was just gonna comment on the SAR report because it's not the first time that I've heard people or students don't necessarily want to upload that or share that information. And I do get it. I think we requested because it has been that one way that we've been able to validate financial need. And really what they're looking for, and other members of the committee are on here, but is that expected family contribution number. The closer to 0, the more the IRS is saying they have no money that their family can contribute for them to go to a university.
The thing, Jessica, the thing I've run into with that, and same thing goes for some people with it, is that you have so much your family is supposed to give to your education, but there's a lot of families out there that I know, plenty of families out there that their parents just aren't that good of parents, unfortunately. And I mean, my daughters have several friends that literally were not able to go to college because their parents are like, well, you figure it out. I'm responsible to give you, $30,000 worth of education, but I'm not going to. So it's like, but that's not that child's fault. And that's a negative value that we put on it, saying, okay, your FAFSA says this, but your parents aren't going to give you anything. Have a nice life.
And that's where your financial statement becomes so brutally important.
Correct.
Because if you've got a high FAFSA score, but we had a lady who, because her husband owned a farm, she had a huge FAFSA score. Well, they're not making any money. And so she actually gave me a snapshot of her bank statement to show, this is how much is coming in. This is how much is going out. I have nothing. And I mean, there was nothing I could do about the FAFSA score, but she got a chapter scholarship. So.
Yeah, and that's great, the chapter scholarship. But what my thing is, National, why are we not looking at that, and that score is implemented to saying, okay, well, yeah, there's a need, but there's a real need when just because the parents have money doesn't mean you have money. You know? And my kids
But again, they need to notate that in their financial statement, because Amanda did say that there is a part of it that will be, if the financial statement does say that and you do feel like it's genuine, then they might give some credit to that, to overlook the FAFSA score to give the scholarship if they're an incredibly outstanding student. So like I said, don't discourage them from applying. They need to apply and try and sway the committee.
Okay.
Well, and that question was added to the application because the committee said it's not enough. We need to be able to interpret gray area. We need extra information. So I can tell you the committee loves that question because they want to make sure that they're making good decisions based off of every piece of information.
Yep.
Because my daughter wasn't able to get any scholarships.
I didn't
Not any
realize I
financial
was
ones.
rich until the IRS told me I was, and Jamie didn't qualify for many either. So
They
I
told me
get
they
it.
told me that she's like, Dad, I don't qualify for anything, and I'm like, why? She goes, because you made too much money, and I'm like, really? My bank account don't show that.
Well, and I think the rudest awakening for me when I went to grad school was you don't get financial aid as a graduate student anymore. Once you have a bachelor's degree, financial aid is gone. And I was like, what? How do I pay for this? And that's why I love this scholarship, because it is focusing on those people who, I mean, we're hearing from our governing bodies that 98% of people who go to physical therapy school are going to become a physical therapist. I mean, that's a pretty powerful investment to
I mean,
put
I
it
was
into those
blessed.
graduate students.
The military paid for my master's degree, so I'm good.
I just think it's like everything, years ago, the ACT score was like that's what, for scholarship determination. I just think, being open to some of those things, just kind of like everybody is saying, I don't think that always defines the person or,
No. And like I said, those essays and financial statements are powerful. So use those to your advantage.
And also, like you said before, make it, and if they do, at least the organization will give them a scholarship if they don't qualify for the other, being that we take it as
if the chapter
alone.
can. Yeah.
If the chapter can do it, yes, of course.
And the other thing is that we talked a lot about, the schools in your community. I'm an advocate, though. In Oklahoma, we have a lot of chapters. So a lot of times there are not always Oklahoma students to sponsor. So I'm from Chicago, Illinois. I sponsored a girl from my hometown that I went to high school with her mom. If you contact Jessica, not that I'm asking you to contact Jessica, but somebody out there can tell you who is on the unsponsored list. If you have sponsorships available, Nationals will tell you who is out there that's available, and you can just randomly call some of them. You find somebody that is doing something that you want to do, or from a place that you want to try and spread a little AMBUC cheer. We have lots of places there are no AMBUC chapters. Go to one of those cities and try and sponsor a student from there.
Who's doing scholarships now? Is that Marissa? Is the Marissa the new Jessica now?
No, Karen.
Oh, Karen. Okay.
Karen.
I knew it was somebody besides Jessica now. And
Jessica holds a lot of jobs, for God's sake.
Jessica, it's hard for Jessica to take off all those hats because people keep calling her. We also had another question. Do you need additional volunteers for the committee? Unfortunately, they probably would love a lot of help, but they're appointed. So the national president, when that person gets elected and gets sworn in, they appoint a new person to come on every year. I appointed Andrea. So she will be on there for 4 years. You're welcome. I believe Steve will be chair next year.
Yikes.
And and so Amanda will roll off, Steve will roll up, and Donna, the other Donna DCV, will appoint somebody new. So if you're ever interested, that's what I would do, is get a hold of that president-elect now and plant a bug. So, and she's off, so she's not hearing me throw her under the bus. So,
Hey, I
is there
just wanted
anything?
to make
very
it-
much.
Yeah,
I just wanted
I
to
have
make
our,
it-
our
We're
meeting
blessed to
here
have
now.
Jessica with all the hats that she does, where she definitely jumps through a lot of hoops. We appreciate you. At least the
Does.
Patriot
Yes.
Ambug really does appreciate you, Jessica. I'm just saying.
Yes,
that
yes,
you
we
have
do.
gone way in overboard for us.
I heard
think I got
Kristen needs to get off. Gordon, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was going to echo what Andrea said. The state of Oklahoma is so small and so competitive with 20 chapters in Oklahoma. Great Plains chapter here in Lawton sponsored 8, and all 8 of them are outside the state of Oklahoma. Most of them were actually from Pennsylvania and Massachusetts.
Yeah, my chapter has to do the same thing most time. Does anybody else have any questions, scholarship stuff? We're at almost
Yeah,
an
I'd
hour
like to
and a half.
raise a question, and that's determining how many scholarships you can sponsor in a given year. When is that determination made?
So your program giving, well, let me just say this. It will always be, for right now, until the policy changes, Judd, for every chapter is able to nominate at least one student, and they don't have to invest a dime into the scholarship fund. After that, we ask for $600 for every 3 students. Now, some of our chapters are investing in the scholarship program throughout the year. Some of our members are, and your chapter does get giving credit for those members. So if I wanted to do an honorarium for Donna's year as president, and say it's for the scholarship program, my chapter is going to get credit for that gift. We base your giving and your giving goal based off of your membership as of February 28th. So if you kind of know what your membership is going to be as of February 28th, you can go ahead in the hub now or reach out to us, Judd, and we can tell you how much has been invested so far by your chapter and your members. And we can help you come up with what that giving goal is going to be.
Jessica, this is Tom Smith. Could I just interject?
Sure.
I'm just getting interested in working with our chapter, the Grand Rapids chapter, with Judd. And I wanted to say I've known Steve Davis since he was a little baby Ambug. And
When I had hair?
Yeah, and
When I had hair, Tom?
I just want to let you know, this meeting tonight has got so much information. I truly appreciate all the input. I mean, I've got pages of notes. I don't know that means I'll be good on our chair and our committee or not, but I hope to be. And even while that's happening, the national championship game is on the background, and we're from Michigan, and we have an interest there. But you know what? You guys kept my interest, and I kept it on mute when we scored. So thank you for all you did. I'm looking forward to working to send some people to get scholarships. I'm going through cardio rehab, and I'm meeting master's students, and I'm passing around the word of Ambucks. I'm talking to the chairman of that department and said, we could sure use you as a speaker. And so I'm going to do what I can to generate even more interest. The Walker Club has always been very good. Grand Rapids wants to do the same. So again, thanks for everybody's input. I really enjoyed this meeting, so thank you.
I'd like to say that Tom's uncle is the named scholarship holder, Norm Smith.
Awesome.
Named National Ambug of the Year. So Tom has a lot of DNA.
That's awesome. Thanks for the nice comments too, Tom, and good luck on your rehab and your recruiting new Ambucks there.
Hey,
I know Al got off because he was going to watch the game.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Just FYI, the chapter chats are always recorded. Of course, it's always better to be here live because you can ask questions that you need to. But this is going to be this is recorded, and it will be in the hub available. Usually takes a week or two to add them to get it uploaded into the hub, but you can always go back. So if somebody wants to hear this information or you want to hear it again because you think you might have missed something, you'll be able to go back into the hub, into the resources and listen to it.
Hey, Donna, I would just like to, add something about, for my Ohio friends, I'm not watching the game yet, but I will be. But for my Grand Rapids friends, I would just like to let them know that in a couple of weeks, I will be going to the YMCA Service Club and talking about Kids Food Basket and bringing their recipient of the Marge Wilson Award, Mary Kay Hood. And Mary Kay is going with me, and we're going to go talk about Kids Food Basket. And I want to thank Grand Rapids for awarding Mary Kay this award. She is an absolutely amazing person. If you don't know her, read your Ambucks magazine.
She'd be a great national presenter.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you, all of you guys. I'm gonna let you guys go, especially you football fans. Thanks for a great chapter chat. Thanks, Adam, for always scheduling this and monitoring the recordings. And hopefully next month is going to be on Big Hat. So the Big Hats are going to take over the world next month. So try to get your Big Hat, at least your Big Hat president on there to hear the latest, greatest, and how to use your Big Hat program to motivate your membership and recruitment. So you
Aren't
guys
they
have
selling tickets? Aren't they selling tickets for something right now?
They sure are.
Steve, you're really
Okay.
good at this.
Well,
You're really good about
Steve got his tickets last night, I believe.
You think? Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I got one. If you haven't got your magazine yet, I think there's also on Facebook too, on the Big Hat page, maybe national, there's a QR code where you can scan that QR code and go right into their online ticket program and buy your tickets for the Big Hat drawing to win $5,000 cash this time. So that's worth a little investment. So just a little plug for Big Hats. My Big Hat's not close. Sorry, Steve. But
Okay. Yeah.
hey, Nate,
Come
since
on,
you're brand
Donna.
new, do you have any other questions or needs?
No, I don't think I do right now. It was great to hear everything. I think I have a ton of notes to look back at.
It's
Well, welcome to
information
Ambucks.
overload. We'll get you through it, Nate.
Yeah,
Good.
you know who to contact. That you got our phone numbers. So
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm an Ohio State fan, so.
oh,
what?
well, I must say good night. Thank you guys, and I will see you eventually at your conferences. Don't forget to be at your regional conference. I'll be at every one of them. So
Wonderful.
and,
You owe me a hug, Donna.
and I will give it to you.
Okay, I'm looking
All
forward
right.
to it.
Thank
Okay,
you guys. Good
guys.
night.
Good night.
Bye.
Night.
Thanks.